Now, it's not 420 on 420, it's 422 on 420. So I'm excited about that because if we started this segment with Coach Kevin Baker of the UTEP women's basketball team at 420 on 420, I know people out there would be shaking their head. They'd be wondering, what are we doing? What's going on? But hey, this is happens to be one of our time slots. And Coach, we made sure that we were a couple of minutes late just so that way we didn't have you on right at 420 on 420. How's that?
Well, I'm really glad to hear that because that would have been a heck of an introductory phase. Here, Coach Baker is 420, 420. Let's go. Thank you for 422. Save my reputation in town. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. That's what we're here for. Anything we can do to help your reputation out, we're good with that. I love the background. I love the fact that you're right there at the women's basketball office. And I'm sure, like everybody, you're working very hard right now with the portal the way it is. It's so interesting, Coach. A week and a half ago, I'm hearing 7 women's basketball players are in the portal. But that to me wasn't the big story. The big story was that the women's basketball portal is grown like the men's portal has. And at the time, there were almost 1,000 players in the portal, which kind of gives you an idea of just how this is turned into the transfer portal. That is a college sports. I don't want to call it a dilemma. This is really the new college athletics that we're dealing with right now in real time, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the NCAA made it cool to quit. And when they made it cool to quit, then a lot of student athletes bought into the idea that it was cool to look somewhere else. It's cool to go play somewhere else. It's cool to get on Twitter and announce that they're going to reopen their recruiting to go to, wherever it is that they want to go. And, it's 7 to date. It could be more. We have absolutely no idea who it could be next because that is the world we live in now. We're living in the it's a cool to quit culture, fostered by the NCAA, and I hate that because what it's done is now we're all junior colleges. Now we're all going to be recruiting year to year. There'll be very little 4-year development, and I think that's sad, unfortunately.
You call it junior college. I'm going to tell you something. I heard even a better term for it, that this is ultimately turned into AAU ball. That now that's what college basketball is, AAU ball, because you've got players that are going to be ultimately recruiting you as hard as you're recruiting them, and then they just decide to bounce around and keep moving from year to year because there's going to be very little loyalty these days.
Yeah, and what a sickening thought that really and truly is, because now, coaches use words like process and culture and development, and now those things really aren't things we can depend upon. Now it's going to be, I've got this kid, they're a great player. I don't know how long I'm going to have them, so I've got to coach them as hard as I can. I've got to develop them in the time that I have because I don't know how much time that's going to be, and cross my fingers and hope that it goes well because I'm seeing some really, really intelligent players make some very unintelligent decisions.
Candidly, and I know you're on the radio, so you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but I'm going to ask you this anyway. Of the 7 players that are currently to date in the portal, how many surprised you by their decision?
Well, I live in a world where I'm pretty positive by nature and positive in thought, and I think we had such a good culture here with this team this year. I was surprised by every single one of them. Even seniors that are graduating and can go into graduate school and play, whatever the case may be. I would have thought every single one of them would have come back. You think about it, there's no real reason to go. We're a successful program. We have a great culture. We're not abusive towards our players, and a lot of coaches are. It's just a good, clean, quality environment to play college basketball. And then when somebody chooses to go somewhere else, it look, full disclosure, complete shock on my part. But I'm also learning, like the rest of the world, that it doesn't really matter the relationship that you have with players these days, that social media, Twitter and Instagram, they're undefeated. They will not lose, and that is going to win out. Players are more excited about putting their availability on Twitter than they are buying into a process and being part of the team.
UTEP women's basketball head coach Kevin Baker with us here on Sports Talk. Now, you've dealt with transfers before, but never to this extent. This, by far, has been the largest transition that you've had to deal with since you arrived. And the team had a great season. You know, it's one thing if you're struggling and the players are not happy and the you could just tell that there's not a good vibe and you want to get a fresh start. But this basketball team had a bye through the first round of the tournament. I mean, you are a 2 seed in the West. And normally when you got a 2 seed in the West and you're coming off the kind of season you're thinking, you figured everybody would want to buy in, run it back next year, and have a chance to be a 1 seed instead of having to rebuild half your roster.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what in the world they're looking for. You know, it really does. I mean, that's just, I wonder about it, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But when I start to get frustrated at what's going on with college basketball, or specifically with our program, Middle Tennessee, the game we lost is the game they won. They went to the NCAA tournament. Their top 2 players walk in the office the next day and quit, go into the portal. So when you start looking in the mirror and going, okay, what am I doing wrong here? What do we got to fix? You start realizing quick, it's not the individual institutions, it's not the individual programs. It's the NCAA allowing this to happen. And I hate to be so negative in my comments, but, you know, that's just the fact of the matter. We work really, really hard here to develop a very positive culture. And we're not getting much payback on that if our university is going to be a revolving door.
Do you expect things to get better before they get worse, or they continue to get worse as far as the state of college sports right now?
You know, I think in theory, what the NCAA sees is that in a couple of years, this will all even out because it's essentially called a one-time 4-year transfer exemption. So they're saying in time, people can only transfer once without punishment. So this will all die down. But I hate to say this, but I don't see it going anywhere because now we even have players that they know it's a one-time transfer exemption, but they are willing to sit a year. So it doesn't matter. They still want to transfer anyway, you know, so it does. Like we have a couple of players on our team right now that entered the portal. They're going to have to sit if they go anywhere else because they've already utilized the transfer exemption one time.
Mm-hmm.
They got in the portal, and I don't want to name the kids because I don't want to embarrass them, but we had 3 kids, almost 4, who went into the portal, realized it was not for them, and asked to come back. But then it's too late because we've already recruited. We've already offered their scholarships to other people. They made a poor decision. They tried to make it right. But, you know, it's hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube when that kind of thing happens.
Is your policy towards your athletes, and they probably know this going in, that if they decide to leave, they're not allowed back? Or do you keep it on a case-by-case basis? How do you decide?
Well, originally, when 2 or 3 of them came in to get in the portal, I said, think about it, sleep on it, get in the portal if you want to. In the next few days, if you snap out of this and you want to come back, then you certainly can. And I meant that when I said it. But when you let 2 weeks go by or 3 weeks go by, we have to do our job. You know, we have to continue to recruit. We have to continue to replace what just left us. And, you know, recruiting is going really well. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, my heart aches for kids that we both know they've made a mistake. They're trying to fix it. They're 18 to 22. They're making poor decisions, but then it's too late. And so we try to give them the opportunity to fix it. We try to give them the opportunity to come back. And I guess I could say is on a case-to-case scenario, if that scholarship is still available, we could sit down and talk about it. But in most cases, it hasn't been.
That's a tough lesson to learn. You know that? Very tough.
It's hard enough being 18 to 22-year-olds anyway, and then now they get hit with this in their face. All their friends are transferring. They think it's a good idea. They go home, they figure out it's not a good idea, and most people really aren't allowed to come back. And a lot of it's just not in our program, but in a lot of programs, it's just anger. Look, you left us, so just going about your way. But to me, if you do it right and you time it out right and you figure out you've made a mistake, you may still in our program be able to come back and fix it. And the timing hasn't been on their side yet, but I certainly would have afforded them that opportunity early on.
Kevin Baker is the head coach of the UTEP women's basketball team. He joins us live via Zoom here on Sports Talk as we continue. All right, Coach, so you've had a couple of additions right now to the roster as a result of the players in the portal and leaving the program. So let's talk about a pair of them. First off, with junior guard Michaela Pippin, who had played out at K-State prior to coming to UTEP.
Well, we recruited Michaela Pippin when she was at Central Arizona College, and she was a third-team JUCO All-American and one of the most highly talented players in the country. We recruited her all year long. We recruited her really hard, and we actually thought we were going to get her out of JUCO. The last second, Power 5 Kansas State comes out of nowhere, gets her, and she goes out there. And I think she would have had a pretty good career there at Kansas State. She got unlucky. She got COVID, got sick. She was one of the ones that really got sick from it, opted out of the rest of the season, and was looking for another place to play. So we were lucky. We were fortunate that we recruited her the first time around because she really gave us opportunity. After we started calling her, she didn't take any more phone calls from other universities, and I think she knew then she was going to come to UTEP, and we'll be a better team at the fact that she's joining us.
Nice. And you add that to the rotation of guards you already have right now, especially with Gallegos and Krause. Adding Pippin just gives you a really nice 1-2-3 punch, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And she's a 3 because she can shoot it, but she can also post up and play forward. She really can rebound and defend in the interior. And I think one of the biggest points of emphasis for our team this year was we knew we had to get better in the interior and get more athletic in the interior. Our guard play was fantastic all year this year. It'll be fantastic next year too. But if we want to excel and get to the next level, win that semifinal game, we knew we had to get a little bit more athletic.
You get 1 year of Teal Battle coming from Little Rock, Arkansas, and she will be the graduate 6'1" forward that you're talking about also, helping your inside play. What can you tell us about Battle?
Well, let me tell you, we were really lucky to get Teal Battle. I mean, it was us and a couple of Power 5s, and so I can't wait for her to get here so we can hug it out. I can't believe she chose us. I'm so excited that she did because she's a player that started at Little Rock. She was a all Sun Belt, all tournament player. She's going to come in and add some maturity. She's going to come in and add some leadership. She's going to come in and she's been around the block, man. She knows college basketball. She's very intelligent. She'll probably stick around and be a grad assistant for us after, just because she's that kind of kid. And I'm looking most forward. She's a talented player, no question. She can do it all. But I'm looking forward to her leadership. We had a core of 3 seniors last year that were terrific players and really, really good people, but leadership wasn't their thing. They're not vocal people. Teal's vocal. Teal will let you know what needs to happen and when it needs to happen. So I'm looking forward to some on-the-floor leadership, much-needed leadership for this team.
How many more spots do you have left, Coach, right now?
Well, we signed 3 players in the early period. We signed Gracelyn Alvarez, an all-state point guard from Houston, Texas. We signed Gabrielle Salas out of Northwest Florida Junior College last year, one of the best junior colleges in the country. Problem was she could never get out of Brazil. And Brazil had COVID locked down, so there was no way she could get here, but we kept her scholarship for her. She's a 6-foot shooter. She will come in. And then last but not least, Eliana Cabral, who we got out of Portugal. She was on the Portuguese national team. We placed her actually in New Mexico Junior College. Had New Mexico Junior College had a season this year, she would have been a junior college All-American. She's about a 5'10" guard. So we had those 3 already. You add Michaela Pippin and Teal Battle to the mix. That's 5. And we're hot and heavy on a couple more. And we're just waiting for our phone to ring to finish it up.
Do you want to go after a 6'4", 6'5" post player, just a big body the way you've had over in the years past? Or do you want to stay with someone more athletic, a little undersized that can kind of go into the mix? What do you want?
Well, once we get down to our final 1 or 2 scholarships, we always say the same thing every year. Now position doesn't matter. Now we want to go after the best player available. And this time last year, that best player available to us was Isis Lopes. And we got a good player. Unfortunately, she's leaving, but it's one of those things where we try to take position out of it. Now, if we are recruiting some people that are that size and bigger, but we don't always get those guys. And one of the things I always tell our players is, our coaches is, we never want to recruit size because to have size. They've got to have some skill. They've got to have some ability to play. And we've actually turned down some size before because they weren't good enough basketball players. And, you never want to sign somebody just because they're 6'3". I think a lot of Power 5 schools do that, but I'm not really crazy about that concept.
I understand. So for you, best available players at this point in time, are you still looking at the portal as being the place where you want to go out and grab those players, or would you rather get them through JUCO or through just the high school ranks?
Well, really portal. And here's the reason why. There's great players available every single day, that new players that hit the portal that weren't in there yesterday that are there today. And that's hard because we've got over 1,000 kids in our database that we're trying to figure out. We're not recruiting 1,000 people, but we're trying to figure out which kids from the portal fit what we do. And new kids get added every day. Now, if we get a couple of commitments on the ones we're already recruiting, believe me, we're going to be happy. We're already on some really good players. I hate to be a portal recruiter at this point, but I think it's the new state of the game. And we're going to have 1-year rental players every year now. And I'm not sure it's good for the academic world. I'm not sure it's good for college basketball. But that is the boat that we are all rowing in now, and we're going to play that game.
How do you win with the portal? What do you think is going to be your secret to utilizing the transfer portal to win and have a chance to go to the tournament?
Well, that's something that we talk about every single day in our staff meetings. And I'll make it really simple for you. We have to find players that are maybe a little bit of a diamond in the rough in terms of, can they come in and do what we do? What this kind of things that we run offensively are fairly unique. Not everybody runs the kind of offense that we run. And we can find kids that maybe didn't flourish in one system, but we feel like they can flourish in our system. And so there's several players that we're recruiting right now that they maybe didn't score 20 points at their respective university that they were at last year, but they can darn sure be productive in what we do. And that's the challenge, I think. Everybody goes after, if you find a kid in the portal, they're averaging 20 points and 10 rebounds, everybody's recruiting that kid. Well, I don't think we can do that and win that battle. So we've got to find a kid that maybe doesn't do that so much, but can flourish in what we do. And that's why I'm so excited about the ones that we're on, because we have some players that we found that can do that.
Kevin Baker with us, head coach of the UTEP women's basketball team. Before I wrap it up, give me your first impression of Joe Golding and what you've seen from him so far as he's been on campus about a week.
You can spend about 5 minutes alone in a room with Joe Golding and figure out he's the guy for the job. And he is just a special coach. I feel like our administration hit a home run by hiring him. I know there were some big names that were in the mix, but the cream ultimately does rise to the top. I think he's the cream that did rise. I think he's the right guy. Watching what he's doing, short time on the job, 3 or 4 days, just watching what he's doing in the community, what he's doing recruiting wise, watching what he's doing with his staff. I mean, the guy just, everything he touches turns to gold. So and no pun intended there, but it's one of those things where I've just been very impressed with him. But if you really want to know how I really feel about it, I'm more impressed with his resume than his personality. I'm a D2 guy. D2 guys are grinders. We have to grind to get to Division I. So I know he knows how to work hard. I know he knows how to do the things a lot of coaches aren't willing to do to be successful. When I saw his resume, I immediately liked the guy and hoped that we hired him.
Awesome stuff. Kevin, great to hear from you as always. Appreciate the time and look forward to chatting with you here during the rest of the spring and summer months.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it.